Is that the ear?
Welcome to the Clark County Fire District 6 Board of Commissioners meeting and workshop. It's May 4th, 2021. We're actually having our meeting here at the fire station, doing the appropriate things that we need to do to meet in person. And we're going to start off first with the workshop. When that's over, we'll take a couple-minute break, and then we'll go into our board meeting. So we're going to start with the workshop first, and I'm going to turn it over to Chief Maurer.
I'm going to turn it over to Chief Newberry.
Perfect.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this evening's workshop is regarding the cost proposals for the Station 61 project, remodel and potential addition. And tonight we have two guests in person and one guest via Zoom. Kathy Bowman from McKinsey, who was our architect on our last projects and has been a great partner for us. And then Jeff Humphreys, who's one of the principals at McKinsey, also an architect and a great partner. And then somebody new that I haven't met before is Matt Wiggins via Zoom. He's working with one of their partners, Rowan, who does a lot of the nuts and bolts, cost estimations. They have the machinery that puts all the numbers together. So I wanted to welcome everybody and go ahead and turn it over to Kathy. And Chief Schmidt has asked that you remove your mask so you can be heard.
Got it.
If you don't mind.
Not a problem. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having us here today. So today we wanted to kind of go back in history, since it's been a while since we actually started the project and when we actually originally did the conceptual design process. So I wanted to walk you through what we had previously done in, I believe, 2017, 2016-ish. And then what has transpired to date. So we'll give you a little history in regards to that. So with that, one of the first things that we did when we originally did this project and looked at the study, a conceptual design study in 2015, was we asked ELS, knowing that there was a stream in the back of Station 61, to look at the wetlands and see what kind of impact they would have on whatever improvements were going to be made to Station 61, whether it was a renovation or adding on to the Station 61 shop. At this time, we only asked for a preliminary review just to see what the impacts were. As we were going through the project, we quickly realized that the budget that you all had was only going to take us through Station 63 and Station 62, and so we pushed pause really at that point instead of doing any more work and spending any more effort on Station 61. And so we only have a preliminary report just outlining basically where the wetlands were, what kind of impact and what kind of buffer zones were going to be. And so that was a preliminary analysis and a quick, 100-foot level kind of analysis that we did. As far as the Station 61 floor plan itself, we really looked at seismically upgrading the station so that it can survive a seismic event, structurally hardening the building, and then we allocating some of the spaces, but really keeping everything in generally the same area. We straightened out the hallways, really try to improve the operational flow, but maintain the kitchen, dining, day rooms, the bunk rooms, and a lot of the electrical spaces all in the same area. So it was more of a cosmetic upgrade, and it was mostly on the interior itself as far as the improvements. There were ADA improvements, and therefore you will notice that there was new stairs and elevators that were proposed for this project. But to some extent, it was a minimal remodel at 2015. We did also look at adding on to the shop. At that time, we see an odd angle that was due to a response to ELS's report in regards to the buffered zones and what we were able to do and what we anticipated what the county might say in regards to how we can add on to the building. The shop itself was just meant to be an addition, and was not gonna be seismically hardened, or no sprinklers were gonna be added at the time. It was purely to add additional bays into the shop so that maintenance can be completed on your apparatuses. So these were the floor plans and also the plans that we had when we went out for conceptual design, cost estimating at the time. So at the time, in 2017, we actually completed, and this was January 2017, we did complete a cost estimating based upon the floor plans and a narrative that we completed. We had a cost estimator on board, and the remodel, the seismic upgrade, and the addition to the shop all included, and this is including not only the construction cost, but also inclusive of the consultant costs, which are architectural engineering fees, your hazmat, ELS, as well as owner costs, which would include furniture, permitting fees. Total project costs all included, we were looking at a range of $4.5 million to $5 million. So again, I'll state this was back in January of 2017. So already about 4 or 5 years ago. So that was the end. After January of 2017, we shifted gears and really focused on stations 62 and 63 at the time. And so that was the end of our efforts with the station 61 and its analysis and any further conceptual design analysis at the time. Now, bringing us to date, we did have ELS as a consultant. This time, knowing that you guys were fully invested in looking at the due diligence and looking at making the actual improvements, we had ELS complete a full report. And it was great that we actually had that ELS come out and redo that report, because the wetlands actually receded on the site, which is unusual but not unheard of. And so the wetland buffer zones that affect your property is less than what it was back in 2015. What that means is there's less involvement with the county and no Army Corps of Engineer, and just the duration of all the approvals that we would have to get was basically lessened in that aspect. We also understood from ELS's final report and final findings that there are some vegetations that are invasive currently in the wetland buffer zone that would have to be replaced per the requirements of the wetland. And those only go into effect when Station 61 shop the addition is completed. It would not be put into effect if you do a remodel to the Station 61 itself. So only the addition. We also looked at the overall site, and knowing that when we were working on Station 62 and 63, we did do some sewer work at Station 61. We knew there were things that we wanted to address. One thing was maneuverability. Now that we have adjusted the location of the shop addition, we wanted to make sure we had the proper clearances so that the apparatuses can get in and out through the drive-through bays. So we were looking at a drivable surface on top of the draft hydrants. We're looking at a new generator for Station 61, one that will service the whole entire building, and relocating it. We were also looking at a new fuel pump, replacement of some of the concrete areas at Station 61, since there were some areas that showed sinking. There was also wetland mitigation costs that we have now analyzed and priced out. We have new fencing around the perimeter of the building, knowing that you currently have some population traversing the site, and so really securing the site. Included with that fencing were two secure gates, one on the northern side of the property where for the living quarter side, and then on the southern side where your admin staff are currently parking. We also were looking at replacement of a portion of the storm piping on site. There are some corrugated piping that will need to be replaced at some time, and so we went ahead and added that to the project cost. And then also bringing fiber optic to the building. There is a demarc location across the street on North Hazeldale Avenue. We would just need to pull that into the building. And then there were some improvements in regards to site security by adding site lighting. So these were all additional scope of work that we have added on and made sure that we have captured in this new revised cost estimate as well. As far as the building itself, we really started evaluating the operational flow with discussions with the chiefs. We decided that by moving the bunk rooms where the current existing day room, kitchen, and dining are, you can improve on your response time, and therefore we relocated those bunk rooms to be more towards the front of the building. We've also, after you guys have been in Station 63 now for a while, have noticed that you really like the turnout rooms that are currently at Station 63. So we have enlarged that turnout room to accommodate all the turnouts that you currently have, as well as relocated a decon room and a specific decon room with extractors and such. Again, we've also moved the day room and the dining and the kitchen to be in the room we're currently in now. It allows for better flow. We're also able to close off and have a little secondary lobby for the elevator and the stairs that lead up to the classrooms upstairs. So really kind of securing off that living quarters portion for the crews. On the administration wing side, which is in green on the left-hand side, which is the south side, we've just reallocated some office spaces and added some hallways for convenience to get out to the parking, the covered parking area, and then reduce the size of the training areas just to be able to really right-size the space so that we can accommodate the board meetings that you currently have as well, and provide the most opportunities in the future to have more office spaces or storage spaces in that admin area.
Kathy, did you recalculate the EOC training room? If we don't have tables in there, what the occupancy would be?
Yes, so we could fit about 35 to 40 people.
Okay. Fine for board meetings then. Okay.
And there is 20 wet tables and chairs, as far as occupancy.
Thank you.
Something we've learned when we were working on Station 62 was that there was some, when we were looking at windows, there were some mold issues. And so in this instance, in this cost estimate, we have also captured new siding as well as window replacement as an option, so that we have those costs in hand. So those are additional scope items that we have added. We've also got covered parking on the admin side as well. New gutter and fascia replacements. We understand the roof is fairly new, so we do have as an add alternate just in case a roof replacement if that was to be selected. And then as well as in the additional scope, on the south wing we have a antique rig showcase piece as an add alternate, and additional new walls for hallways and offices. And then on the north wing for the living quarters, as I mentioned, the reconfiguration of flipping the location of the kitchen day dining from where it's existing to where it's going to be in the future, and then capturing some of the storage spaces as well as relocating the condensing units that are on the other side of this whiteboard and the screen, really maximizing the space is also included in the cost as well. So those
So
are.
this wall will get extended out?
Yes.
Okay.
To align with the existing wall that's on the right-hand side. So there's about a 3-foot area where the roof extends, overhangs, and the condensing units are. We're looking to recapture that space as well as the storage spaces that are located on the west side as well. So.
When you say condensing units, is that HVAC?
Yes.
Heat pumps?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's correct.
And so the 3 feet would make a significant difference versus what the cost would be?
It's about a $40,000 savings if we didn't do it.
So it's about 40 grand to do it? Is that?
Approximately,
Approximately.
yes. Right. But we feel that it would allow for a better operational flow, just as far as being able to maneuver around without jogging, having so many jogs within the
In
building.
that hallway?
Yeah.
What's the estimate to move the kitchen?
Sorry,
Moving the kitchen from where it is to here
here,
is about,
we calculated approximately with all the contractor markups to be somewhere around $100,000. Looking at grinding and getting all the plumbing and everything included and adjusting all the HVAC.
thank you.
Okay, so the next portion is the shop. So we reconfigured the shop to allow for ample storage for there's a training storage portion. We also have the personal training fitness room now located in the shop, which is the second bay from the left-hand side. And then, is there a
Laser beam?
Yes. Oh, there you go. Oh, well, it doesn't work on the computer screen. Sorry. On the personal training room side, and then we have a toilet room, a staff toilet shower room in the breakout area. The existing mezzanine will remain, and additional supply bays will be the existing portion, the reconfigured, remodeled portion of the shop building. The addition portion will include a concrete paved area for groundskeeper, maintenance areas, fleet office, facilities office, and then the 2 shop bays. And these shop bays are drive-through, as well as have the height clearance required so that the caps can be lifted and do maintenance inside the shop bay without pulling the rigs out. So overall, as far as adding scope to this the shop project, we are looking at seismically upgrading the building so that it is in the same performance as the station itself, and additional adding a sprinkler line into the shop, and then additional interior walls, and then cover parking area for the incident response vehicle on the side, on the left-hand side. And then overall, a square footage increase from 6,392 square feet, which was the previous 2015 edition total square footage of the shop, to now a 7,425 square feet addition to the shop.
Question, what's the incident response vehicle, not the WASDOT? Do we have one?
No. So we have that concrete pad on the left of the shop, on the south side of the shop.
The rehab bus used to be?
Yeah, rehab used to be there. Because the concrete's there, we thought it'd be nice to cover it. We always wanted the bus covered. So
Right.
it's got some utilities out there already, so it's a great spot to park something, whether it's trailers, we don't have a place to park the trailers. Yeah. So
Okay.
accessory.
Multi-use.
Yep.
Thank you.
Didn't we used to have a tank out there we could dump used oil in?
We did
Is that
many,
in ground?
That's gone,
That got taken care of?
many years ago.
Okay, maybe on me. Just wanted to make sure we didn't run into an underground one.
It's actually, it was called Loop Cube, and it was an above ground.
It was above ground, you're right. You're right, okay.
We did actually also do our due diligence and had a geotechnical engineer come out and actually, do some bore testing in, where we're anticipating the addition. And he found the soil to be in great condition, so, that was great news as well.
So the covered area, we've got a brand new shop rig, plus 2 other rigs. Are you planning on parking those on the side at night or down here so they're covered? I mean, is that?
Prefer they were covered, whether they're inside the shop bays or under the covered parking area.
Okay, but there'd be enough room on the side there if we covered that for a couple of them?
Yeah, if they were stacked too deep, for
Okay,
sure.
okay. Thank you.
All right. So that takes us to the overall cost.
Because I have to ask questions now, because I'm gonna forget my questions, because I'm old.
That's perfectly all right. I am happy to answer them now. So I apologize for how small it is, and I could barely read it myself. But the left-hand side is inclusive of all the add alternates that we have previously discussed. This is re-siding the building, having the antique rig showcase area in the lobby, as well as re-roofing, cover parking, and for the shop, if we were to reduce it by 1 bay, instead of having 2 new bays, just having 1 bay. And so what we have here is the gray area is, for your reference, this was the high cost of the 2015 cost estimate. And then the first blue column is the Station 61 remodel cost, all inclusive with the seismic upgrade and everything. And then the right-hand side of the blue, of the final column is the Station 61 shop addition and remodel. So again, the blue portion is the construction cost. This is what you would pay the general contractor, and what we would expect bids to come in at. I should clarify, and Matt would appreciate it if I clarified, is that when we do these cost estimates, we're not looking to be the lowest bid. So the numbers that you're looking at is what we anticipate to be the median bid for the project when we get the bid. At this time, we're looking at each of these projects to be its individual project, meaning that we're looking at it as Station 61 remodel being completed at one time with one general contractor, and then a year later, having Station 61 shop completed with a different general contractor. Now, there are cost savings if the 2 projects were completed at the same time, but that's to be determined as well. So, the green portion again is the consultant cost. This is your architecture engineering fees, your geotechnical engineers, your special inspectors, hazardous materials, mitigations, all of that. And then on your owner costs, we've got furniture costs, as well as permitting costs. And we've also anticipating that some of the staff are gonna have to move out of the station in order to work on the station. We also have some moving allowances and temporary facilities. So what we're anticipating is that the administration staff will be moving out to a commercial office building, and we looked at a commercial office building in Vancouver about for 10 people, and the cost of that for the duration of the construction period. The crews will remain on site, and we anticipate they will move between the 2 different wings and phase out so that the station can remain operational while in construction. But we would look to have the administration staff move out of the area. And then just something else to know, as of April 1st of 2021, we understand that the taxes have gone up from 8.4% to 8.5%. So there is that factor that is added onto this cost. So all in, if you were to go in with your whole entire wish list package, that was gonna be a $14 million project. And then if we were to do no add alternates, it was a $12.5 $12.475 million project.
So Kathy, under owner's costs, we have a contingency of 7.5%.
Yes.
It doesn't add up as you go across, so I'm doing something wrong, but 7.5% of the total project cost, is that?
Of the construction.
Construction costs. What do we have at Station 3, or 2, or 2 and 3? Do we have 10%?
No, originally it was 3%.
In our last one?
We actually stuck on pretty close to our contingency, and I know we talked about it being higher, but the paperwork that I had from 63's cost estimate was 3%, so. I
So
don't
we're at
know.
7.5 on this one.
So we have it split between.
Remodel.
I can't see that one at all, so I'll just say what I have here. So we have, a contingency of 15% of the construction costs built in. And then you have a contingency also and that's for construction, but then you also have a contingency for owner costs.
Okay, that's where I'm confused, thank you.
Yeah.
Right, so we're carrying a 15% contingency on the GC side, so during the construction
Okay.
period, and then 7.5% for the consultant costs, 7.5% for the owner costs. So there's 3 different buckets of contingencies.
Okay.
Can I clarify something on that construction contingency?
Sure.
That's our first contingency, right, on this schematic design conceptual estimate. When your final estimate is done, that contingency will be 0. That all of that contingency will move into the cost of the work as your design progresses. So the final estimate you see from me before you go to bid will have a 1% to 0% contingency on it as the scope is uncovered, as you progress through your design and realize, oh, we need to move this wall here and things like that. So that's something to note.
So the contingency is built into the different aspects of it. It'll still be there, it'll just be in a,
Yes,
Different.
exactly.
because on a remodel, we all know you never know what you're gonna find.
Right.
So where does that, so where's the what if bucket when we run into mold or window like we did at the other stations?
Right, so I think what Matt is saying is that in his cost estimate, he'll build in that 1 to 0% contingency, and we would recommend that, and have a separate line item at that time.
Okay.
As we progress through the drawing set of at least a minimum of 5% contingency.
Right, yeah, like moving to construction for the unknowns or hey, let's change this,
Yeah.
let's not do it this way, so.
Yeah.
Or mold, or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So we wanted to also give you a little bit of history of how construction costs are moving. And so we have a great example. Vancouver just had a bid on Station 11, which is a prototype station to their Station 2, which was completed in 2016. It's slightly bigger, but it's the same design, they use the same materials, and so back in July of 2016, Station 2 bid out at about $5 million, and the cost per square foot was approximately $378 per square foot. As of March 2021, when we bid the project, and now it has been officially awarded to a general contractor, the cost per square foot was $481.46 per square foot. I do want to clarify that we're looking at the lowest bid on this, not the median bid that we're trying to shoot for, as far as the construction, the costs, as far as what we've shared with you in the previous slide. So when we look at Station 61 and Station 61 shop, your overall cost per square foot is coming in at $388 a square foot for Station 61 remodel. And then Station 61 is slightly higher since it has an addition portion, which is inclusive of foundations, and also it's a smaller square footage, which can escalate some of the costs. So that airs the cost per square foot, and that is $414 per square foot. The median bid for Station 11 was $504 per square foot, so just for reference. And then they were also able to lock in their rate at the 8.4% tax. So we wanted to show you that number without the taxes as well. This, between 2016 and 2021, we're looking at a price increase of 27%. We want to clarify that Vancouver really went in at a really great time. They actually had 9 bidders, 8 of them who were responsible bidders, and they just went out to bid at the right time where general contractors were super hungry coming out of the COVID, and people were just starting projects, and so.
They had 9 bidders on Station 11?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we expect that to be a little bubble. We are already seeing contractors getting busy, and so escalation factors are already starting to increase back to pre-COVID times. Matt can probably elaborate on that a little bit as well. And then it's not exactly apples to apples comparing Station 11 to your station, as there's additional site work that that each station has. So, but we did want to give you guys this history so that you can see where things are coming in at.
How close, on Station 11, how close was the bid
To build a new station.
to the
for
estimate?
remodeling, good.
It was between the highest bidder and the lowest bidder, there was a range, they were within 10%.
If I remember correctly, Kathy, I think that the low bidder was about $400,000 less than the next apparent bidder. And if you drop that one out and you went with the median, I think that was really close to what our final estimate was.
So you said $400,000 less the low bidder was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure their bonding company is gonna be very interested in that.
Yeah, we've already informed Vancouver. It's like, if you look at, they were the only ones that were like that. All the other bidders were very competitive
Yeah,
with one
they
another.
get very nervous when
yeah.
you leave that much money on the table.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And they probably will be looking to try to recapture that, so.
Just
So,
walk.
so it's cheaper to build a new Station 11 than it is to remodel this station?
It was. So I do have, I thought you guys might want to ask that question.
You knew I was going to.
We wanted to put a summary together. So Station 61, if we were to look at it all in and also look at shop, remodel, and addition, we're looking at a construction cost of $11.1 million. You add all the soft costs, which were the green and the blue fields, plus the taxes, you're looking at the total project cost of $14 million. Now, if we were to just scrape this whole entire site and build a brand new Station 61 facilities, we're gonna take $525 a square foot. We recognize this is higher than the median per square foot that you saw in the previous slide, but it would take us a little longer to do the design documents with a whole new station. And so building in that escalation factor, doing this exact same square footage of Station 61 and the shop remodel and addition of 28,175 square feet. And then 25% of the construction costs for soft costs, as well as taxes. You're looking at a $19.9 million project, or almost $20 million project all in. So there is
Station 61 is 40% larger than Station 11.
That's
So
true.
that's important to remember too.
So there is definitely a cost savings to doing a remodel overall.
Thank you.
So that's our slides. We'll be happy to take any other questions, and Matt Wiggins, our cost estimator, can also elaborate more on some of the other historical data that we might have in regards to fire stations as well, in the construction market, and what we're anticipating if there are questions in regards to that.
I guess my first question would be, if in the next month we give you, or less than that, if we give you a go-ahead on A, B, C, or D, how long before we could submit to the county, and how long do you think it would be before we could actually go to bid? And Matt, depending on if it's 3 or 4 months down the road, do you have any idea of what the cost might go up in that period of time?
So, let me answer the schedule part, and we're anticipating that if you gave us the go-ahead now, we would be ready to go out for permitting and bid in the fall, and then go out to bid, in the fourth quarter, or late 2022, so that you can start construction at the beginning of the year. The cost estimate that we gave you, is, projecting, the bids coming in at, I believe, Matt, you said October, or third to fourth, somewhere between third and fourth quarter in 2022 is what we projected so far,
So we probably wouldn't do anything till December?
or January, yes.
Of
Mhm.
22?
Of
23.
22.
22, next year.
We would go out to bid sorry, I must have added a year, I apologize. We would go out to permit and bid at the end of this year, 2021.
You scared me, Kathy.
Sorry, I apologize.
There's more escalation factors.
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Forgot what year we were in.
Q4 this year,
Mhm.
and then a midpoint of construction will be the middle of next year, and we have applied escalation,
We already have.
based on, industry, standards from Turner Construction, Mortensen Construction, to escalate the costs out to the schedule at that time.
Thank you. Good answer. Thank you.
I think I heard you mention a cost savings for both projects at once. Is that something you can elaborate on? Do you have detail of that?
I will turn that over to Matt.
So at this point, we've broken it up into two separate projects. Your station remodel going first, right away, right? That's a quick turnaround, having it bid this Q4. Totally doable, but it is, you need to move quickly. And then knowing that we have escalated your shop out a year later, so assuming that you're gonna wait a year to do the shop. So that's part of that premium cost. If you were to do the shop at the same time, you would save on the escalation. And the other thing is, you would have one general contractor managing the whole project at once, right? You can imagine there's separate mobilization charges, there's, you could save schedule if they were done at the same time. They could be constructed at the exact same time, if they were done as one project. Where you can imagine, now you've got two separate projects, so there's more general conditions, and more of those management costs. That's where you would see the savings, if you did them all at once.
Matt, can you give us a rough magnitude of what those would equate to in dollars?
Not off the top of my head, but, I think you could save, a few percentage points, doing it that way in the general conditions. It really is a difficult, calculation to pull out, but, if that is something that the board is interested in, we can certainly work that up to a more definite number.
I'm just thinking from a swag standpoint, specifically, we should be able to do it, right? We're carrying a contingency or an escalation factor of how much per quarter? Is it 3%?
Per quarter is 1%, we're
1%.
figuring 4% per year.
Okay, so it's
right now.
4% on the construction cost, just for the escalation factor, and then, I would almost argue that whatever the margins are for the contractor, those would basically go away, that would actually be absorbed into the greater project. I know you'd argue with me about that, but I think that would go down a little, fairly substantially, just because they're not gonna have two different sets of supervisors, right? It's gonna be just the one, superintendent out there. And what was the construction value, Kathy? I can't read that either, so.
Sorry,
For
I
the shop.
can't, yeah.
Hey, Sean, could you share with us your sheet?
Just playing around with some numbers,
Yeah.
I think you'd save about 10% on your shop, so that's about a $300,000 savings
Okay.
on your $3 million construction cost.
So everyone's writing that down, but that's a swag, just so we
Yeah.
all.
I didn't even
Thanks,
know.
Matt. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, you could run it as an ad alternate and deal with it later.
Exactly. I
We
think
get the
that's
permits at
idea.
the same time and.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a good question, permits. We
Yes.
talked a little bit about this,
Mhm.
and we talked about if we phased it, or if we
Mhm.
separated the projects, or how that works. So can you go over how good the permits?
Yeah, So, as far as permits, I did mention that there is a county portion. There is, if we were to add on to Station 61 shop, we will be required to go through a land use approval with the county, and that is what usually takes the longest. They are generally about 12 weeks, and what we would do is go in ahead of time, and the good thing is that these land use approvals will be good for 5 years. So if you did go out for the shop as an ad alternate and decided not to accept it, but decided to do it within the next 5 years, that land use approval will still be good, and you can proceed with that project. And so the due diligence will have been completed. We would try to go out for that land use approval as soon as you guys gave us the go and we had the basic drawings. The drawings that we have here would pretty much suffice for the counties. We would just have to write a narrative associated with it. And then as far as Station 61, it would just be the normal permitting process, which is roughly about 8 weeks with the county. And you cannot, according to county regulations now, community development regulations, they will not do those concurrently with the land use. You will have to go through the land use first and then go out for the building permit.
So land use would be in front of the hearing examiner.
Exactly.
And those are running behind right now because of COVID, so.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So we want to do that really quick, okay?
Mhm.
I think you have 2 years after your approval on that, so you could get the approval on it even if you delay the shop.
Right, and then we also got confirmation from the county that they will honor the mitigation report and everything for 5 years, so.
Oh, great.
They will look at the land use and allow you to phase it.
So as far as the wetlands go, we don't have to do NOAA, Corps of Engineers, the state, any of that, it's just the county?
No, it's not like Station 63 where it was intensive and you have to go to the state and Army Corps of Engineers. In this instance, it is just a county approval. And ELS has shared with us, basically it's the blackberries that are an invasive species that are not allowed in a wetland buffer zone, and those are the ones that would have to be replaced. But otherwise, no other work is anticipated to be required, as long as we treat the water that is coming off.
Do we have any other questions as far as the workshop goes? Just so the audience knows, we can't make any decisions in the workshop, so this is gonna also be under new business in the regular board meeting. So they'll be around when we get to that point in case you have another question or two, but do we have any other questions right now for them? Okay, I think we're gonna take maybe a 3 or 4 minute break and rearrange the room a little bit, and we will be back on in, let's see, what time is it? How about we'll be back on at 6:50 for the regular board meeting, if you would like to join us. Thank you.
That cut, that's the roof for
Okay, welcome back. We are going to begin our regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Once again, it's May 4th, 2021. And I'm gonna call the meeting to order, and we can actually have a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
That was refreshing.
Call for any additions to the agenda.
None here?
None here.
We need to read and approve the minutes of the April 20th, 2021 regular meeting and board workshop.
Move that we dispense with the reading and post as necessary. Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and approved, moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. We did have a couple correspondence items, if you all saw that.
Yeah, I was able to read those.
From Legacy Health, and then, thank you from the
Thank you from the Matter family.
Matter family that had a baby. The Legacy letter is really nice. Okay, citizen communication. This is the time during our meetings that we set aside for any citizens that might want to discuss with us any issues concerning Fire District 6. Since you aren't here, but you are on YouTube, there's a place on the right-hand side. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in, and Chief Schmidt will let us know if anything comes in. Committee reports. No reports from anybody at this point, so I'm gonna move on to the consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen. Chief's report.
So first up on the chief's report is the personnel action report. We had a few appointments and changes in staffing. First was John Bacon was promoted to, or assigned to be the logistics assistant. Arnie Kucha separated service from the district. Josh Matter was appointed to technical rescue team, and Chandler Webb was appointed to technical rescue team. We had a number of anniversaries this month. Brian Baum serving 26 years, Rich Rennie, Pete Hosley, and Josh Shernock, all 15 years. Commissioner Losbeck, 10 years, and that's just service as a commissioner. We know that he has many more years than that with the district. Chandler Webb and Josh Matter both at 4 years, and Assistant Chief David Russell at 2 years. For the COVID-19 report, that's in your packet.
Right.
We've had a little uptick. Number of EMS providers that have tested positive currently is 27. We have 2 in quarantine, not from District 6. Total number of positive cases since the pandemic is 21,101. Number of deaths is 255, and active cases in Clark County are 646.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions for the chief? There's none. Any old business? There's none on the agenda. Any old business anybody knows of? Hearing none, we're gonna move on to new business, and once again to you, Chief.
So the first under new business is the DOH reimbursement. We've been helping up at the Clark County Fairgrounds for the state vaccination clinic, and DOH has reimbursed us. They're paying dollar for dollar for service from the district. They've reimbursed us with 2 payments, the first being for a total of $23,485.41. And the second one that carried it to March 31st was for $47,392.85.
Chief?
Yeah.
You said they're paying dollar for dollar. My understanding was it was a shortfall on absolute coverage of expenses.
No, they're, so not for the Clark County Vaccination Clinic. We pay based on the Washington Fire Chief's rates, and service for those type of events is dollar for dollar. So we bill them at the overtime rate of the personnel that are working there.
So we're recovering 100% of our cost?
We're recovering 100%
Just-
of our costs.
Just not administration of that?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And
they're
some
paying on
supplies.
Paying on a vehicle and supplies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
And then, with the change in the presidency, FEMA was reimbursing COVID expenses at 75%. Now they're doing that at 100%. We got the original reimbursement for the 75%, and now they're gonna send us a check for about $10,000 more to make up that difference.
Great.
And then Chief Russell anticipates another billing for COVID expenses.
Right ahead,
Okay.
workshop.
Workshop date adjustment. Initially, we were gonna do a 151 presentation to the board, the second meeting in May. Because this project takes so much scheduling with county, WSRB, Chief Nor, and then just pulling the data, I asked the board if we could push it back to their first meeting in June.
Any concerns about the first meeting in June? Yeah, we need to take action on that, so the board secretary can let folks know, so. I need a motion for, what's the date of the first meeting?
Is that right after Labor Day
It's
weekend?
June 1st.
So it's the first Tuesday right after Labor Day weekend?
Mhm.
Okay.
At 5:30, what's the actual date? Okay.
It's June 1st.
June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Could be-
so 3-day weekend right before it.
So June 1st, 5:30, I need a motion for a workshop concerning Station 151.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, any additional discussion? Hearing none, so moved. And then we have, the last thing under new business is the Station 61 remodel.
We got to vote. That's okay.
And so we've got Jeff and Kathy here, we've got Sean and the chief here. We just need to throw it open and talk about, do we wanna do it all at once, we wanna break it down, how are we gonna pay for it, we need to talk about all that stuff, so. I'm sure both of you have numerous questions and concerns.
Sure.
I just wanted to ask the question, is there a cost estimate for moving the kitchen to the back? I know we touched on it just briefly when you were giving your presentation, and currently the kitchen's at the front of the building. Replacing that and making that a bedroom space, I'm just curious what those costs are, and then if there's consideration to the roadway noise or anything like that when we're, adding more windows or rooms to the front of the building. If we can just touch on that.
Yeah, so we did take that into consideration. We're estimating approximately $100,000. That is relocation of the condensing units included in that cost, as well as capturing that additional storage space as well. That's included in that approximately $100,000 of cost difference by relocating the day dining and kitchen. As far as the sound, we did include in the cost additional sound attenuation and resilient channels so that we mitigate any noise coming off of the Hazel Dell.
And the reason why we did that is to straighten out direct access from the bedrooms to the truck bay?
There's several reasons for moving that space. One is straightening out things to make the workflow better. The second thing is improving our response or turnout times, especially in the middle of the night when times tend to be a little bit slower. With the dorms right off of the truck bay, you have a straight shot out the door to the bay. It also separates workspaces from kind of the business side of things and the rest side of things. But it also works as an entire system with the building. To have a decon space up here and a turnout room that's big enough for the number of gear that we had, or the number of sets of gear that we have, personnel working here, and the elevator requirement, and all of the things put together, this ended up being the best workflow. Does that make enough sense, or?
Except the captains are way in the back.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait for them.
The captain's offices are way in the back, but not their dorms.
Oh, I
They'll
thought-
take one of the regular bedrooms in.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They're gonna have their own space like battalion chiefs do.
Okay.
I didn't say that for Bob.
That's
Yeah,
something.
those spaces on the
The
west
green?
end are, there's just their offices.
Okay.
Is our commercial washing machine extractor thing, is that gonna go in the decon room
Yes, sir.
up front? Okay.
So if I may, I'm most concerned about financial planning. How this is gonna look, what the debt that we're currently carrying, what the new debt opportunity is if we can retire the old debt and roll it into the new debt at a more favorable interest rate. I'd like to look into that and see how that might look, what opportunities we would have with the bonding company, to issue a new bond and retire the old debt, if that's an option. But I think it's worth looking at, to do that, so we don't have two obligations, we just have the one, and it can amortize all together, rather than having two debts to watch, because it really doesn't matter, because you're gonna pay them both anyway. But if we can roll them all into one, and we still have favorable bond rating, we were like an A+ when we went out to pull a bond before, because we had no debt. We were financially responsible. And so I guess I'd be interested in you reaching out and seeing how that looks.
So we do have that information for you tonight. We are a AA- for our bond rating. We cannot add to the current bond, we have to take out an additional bond. That additional bond right now on a 20-year payout is at about 2.2%. So it's a good interest rate right now. And then I can lay out the money that we do have for the project if you want me to do that.
Chief, real quick, one issue. The way it's written, are we allowed to borrow enough money to pay off the existing bond that's at 4% and then just redo everything at 2.2?
We can't, because that bond is a 10-year payout. You get penalized if you pay it out before 10 years, so we can't do that yet. And then a new bond with D.A. Davidson would be the same. The best rate's at 20 years, but we could pay it off in 10.
We could accelerate it without penalty.
With
Yeah.
no penalty?
With no penalty.
But we've done the math and say that it's still not worth it to take the penalty, even though we're gonna reduce from 4 to 2%?
Yes.
Okay,
That's correct.
so you've checked it both ways?
Yeah. So right now in 6212 for building projects, we originally budgeted $4 million for those building projects. That was anticipating that this project would come in the original $5 million range. We knew it would be more than that, but we put that money into there because we also have a capital fund. With that, when we started looking at hiring McKinsey again to bring them on, we moved $500,000 from that building project to professional services to cover McKinsey's costs. That was underestimated on our part. McKinsey total is coming in the close to $900,000 range. So we didn't anticipate that expenditure. We were right at $875 for that. Some of that expenditure has already been spent on the building project, so we can subtract that, but that's only $81,000 that we've spent on it. And so with what we currently have in the professional services budget, plus the additional costs that we're seeing in the cost estimate for McKinsey services and other consultants, we're about $300,000 short in there. So we'll have to find money for that area. So we have $3.5 million in the building costs that we can use now. Then in 6258, we have $4.4 million. The board usually keeps that at $1.2 million at all times, and that's for emergency issues that the department may face. So if we take 6212 and we take 6258, and we kept the minimum $1.2 million in there, we have $6,705,000, $705,135. Did you get that?
6.7 million. Right?
Yes, 6.7 million. If the board chose to drop 6258 all the way down to 0, that gives us an additional $1.2 million for the building projects, and we'd be at 7.9. What that does to the district is 6258 would then be empty, with the exception of we are holding on to 1.6 million in that account, and that's for the purchase of 2 new pumpers and a truck. And that's that truck amortization over the next 3 years. So if the board chose to do that, we could drop 6258 down to the 1.6 million, but once those apparatus are bought, that account is at 0, and there's no buffer for us in capital projects. So I guess what we really need tonight is these are just at 30% drawings. You know, this takes time, and as we work through this process last time, numbers continually change, designs change. we value engineer. And, it'd be good if the board could give us direction to continue in the direction we're going, to figure out the budgeting and continue to bring it back. That's what, we just need to know if we're heading in the right direction and if you want us to keep going that way. But the bottom line is, we don't have enough money for the project. So, if we were to do just the building, the low end for the cost estimate is 9.1, the high end is 10.2-ish, and I said we had 6.5 to 7.9. So we would
It's
have.
a nice down payment.
So we would have to look at some type of bonding or loan. And then it's just, do we want a bond and loan to do the entire project, or do we want a bond and loan to, do the building? And there's no minimum on the bond.
So
We
the-
have,
I just say, the question to the board, one of the questions the board is probably the shop, adding the two new shop buildings, which is considerable amount of money. Is that something we wanna do? If we do wanna do it now, we can save a little bit of money. If we wanna wait a couple years, we could do it in a couple years and not have to, we're gonna have to borrow some money if we're gonna do it. Which I'm not crazy about, but at this point, things are just gonna go up and get more expensive. Chief Newberry did talk to us about his desire to be able to do a lot of the work on own apparatus here with a mechanic, maybe more than one down the road. Do we need 2 additional truck bays? Do we just need one more that the truck or an engine will fit in, to do one at a time? Cause we're still gonna have a bay in the shop that we could use to put a second vehicle, or our maintenance vehicles could get parked in there if it was empty. So it's about, to eliminate truck bay. Do you remember off the top of your head, you have a swag on that, Kathy? I can't
I
remember.
believe there was about $400,000.
Yeah.
To eliminate one.
So what I would say is, because we are at 30% and because this 30 to 90% fluctuates quite a bit, is that fair to say? It would be nice if staff could continue on the path we're going with everything we see we needing for the next 50 years, carry us into the future, and then put those on as ad alternates. And so then the board at that time could say, this isn't the direction we want you to go. But if we stop the investigation now, we won't ever know the true cost.
at what point would we be able to, what would be the timeline if we needed to borrow money? How fast after the design, engineering, bidding and implementing award of the bid would we have to come up with the money?
Well, we're already short in the professional services.
Right.
That will drain pretty quick, but correct me if I'm wrong, that goes over the whole period of the project, correct? And so we can maintain for a while. I would be calling D.A. Davidson now, because any way you look at it, we don't have the funding to even do this station remodel
So-
with these current costs.
Right. The bond that we currently have, does the penalty go away soon? Isn't there a prepayment penalty on the bond that we currently have?
So we pulled the bond in 2017.
Okay.
It has to mature to 2027 before we can pay it off.
Okay, okay.
2027?
Mhm. And it's actually a little bit higher rate average than what we're looking at now. I think average it's
Right.
2.4.
Yeah, I think the good thing is the money's still reasonable, and at that point, it's like, you know, it's a blessing that it is so cheap to borrow that money.
Well, and the other thing that I would ask is if we're gonna borrow an additional $8 million spread over 20 years, we already have X amount of bond indebtedness per year. We're gonna have another, probably pretty close to the same amount for 20 years. And over the next several years, do we have money in the budget to pay both bonds off? That's my question.
So right now we pay about $700,000 on the bond yearly, and that's for a $10 million bond for 20 years. So if you're looking at less, you would be right there, you'd be 556-ish.
So we double our yearly debt and our indebtedness.
Correct.
and that has to come out of the general budget. So we need to take a look at that too, to make sure if we borrowed it, we'd be able to pay it off, come up with $1.5 million every year, 5 years from now, based on, we can only raise 1%, 1% new construction doesn't even cover our operating costs and wages. So at some point, the lines do like this, and we need to make sure we can pay the bond off, because that has to get paid first. And, I just don't want us to get in trouble, so.
Can I just interject one thing? We still have extra funds right now, and of course, that'll diminish over the years as our costs go up. But one recommendation I would make, if you did, have more debt, is to start putting that into 6258, loading that up, so in the future, we'd have that money to pay if we needed it. If things turn south.
Cause I was talking about, we have a setup, we have a fund set up for equipment. We should probably have a fund set up for capital expenditure. We're not talking about fuel tanks here right now, maybe down the road we're gonna have fuel tanks. I think we want some sort of a building out at Station 3 to house some of our equipment out of the weather. We need to have some flexibility without having to drain our budget to.
Just do one, yeah.
And so next year's budget would be nice to have something in there, and maybe that's a place where we could put some of that, or we could put it in 58, either one. But we need to project ahead to make sure that we can continue to come up with $1.5 million a year to pay off bonds. So, and we have the EMS levy coming up next year. To me, it's either we do everything or we do the station and not the additional shop bays right now. So it's all or that, it's not nothing. We're gonna have to borrow some money to at least do the station.
Yeah.
I think we need to give them some direction, or at least think about giving them some direction on the 2 additional shop bays. One of them is gonna be workout.
Well,
We
either
need to
way,
have
we
that.
have to touch the shop,
Yeah.
because with the remodel here, we lose that workout facility.
Right.
And, so we have to touch it, it doesn't mean that we have to put the 2 bays on it.
Yeah, which is about, if we have the 2 bays, it's probably over $1 million more, maybe probably more than that. With the offices and all the other stuff we have planned and the storage building back, so. I'm just throwing that, we don't have to make a decision tonight, I'm just kinda throwing it out to the board so you can kinda give staff a feel of, at this point in time, what you're thinking about.
I think I'd like to recommend that we continue on the pathway that we're on. I think there's some financial pieces that we need to connect the dots a little bit further on, the bond. I need to understand more about that part of funding and our ability to repay that and how that all comes together. But to change course or really subtract something today, I don't really feel is warranted. I feel like we've invested a lot into this process. Whether we're talking about 1 bay or, that sort of thing, I just feel like we need to continue this discovery and continue on the process and evaluate that as we move forward. I'd like to not have to dip into the reserves that the board has previously set. I don't really want to ever see us in a situation where we're running ourselves at a position where we're right down at 0. That's certainly not anywhere that I'd want to go, and I know that the district has prided itself on not taking on debt, and that's truly commendable in itself. So I don't want to see us getting into that situation. However, if we can afford and the bond payments are all suitable and things come together further, I think that we're on the right path. I think that the price tag for these things too are going to continue. We're just going to kick a can, whether we're doing part of or not. We do reach a point of that. So.
I concur with what you're saying. I'd like to continue on the path. My concern is the private sector might not be able to meet our needs in the future, and that we should gear up to be self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Just like the fueling situation, just
Yeah.
like, all of the situations, and we deal with emergencies every day. This is gonna be another one, especially if we have aspiration to get a tiller truck. We know it's gonna be labor intensive, and they're gonna have to work on it, just like the rest of our apparatus with the annual certifications that the mechanics are gonna have to carry, they're not readily available out there from the private sector. You can't just go shopping for somebody who's qualified and certified to work on this stuff, and so we may as well gear up to accommodate our needs, because it's not readily available out there from the private sector.
Yeah, I would agree too, in the sense that we're looking at a longer term vision. None of this is gonna happen overnight, and, I think that we do need to be planning for that in the future of the district and where we go. You know, we had the workshop on the maintenance of our apparatus, and there was a lot of detail involved in that, and it's definitely something that we need to be looking towards. I think we get further and further behind if we scale this project back just based off of what we have right now. I think we need to understand more of the finance piece with that.
Also, my concern was if this is still the great location for the response model that we're looking for, and apparently it is. So, you know, there's fresh ground across the freeway on the other side at about, 8,000 block or whatever. There, you could do new construction over there, but then you gotta do land acquisitions and start that process all over again.
Yeah.
But this location apparently is still wonderful for the calls that we get. And if we get another 20 years out of the facility when we're done, it's mission accomplished on this property.
Right.
Is our fuel tanks in this right now?
In the all-in proposal, they are included,
Okay.
but we have them,
As an alternate?
yeah, it's an alternate we can pull out. We've had a lot of discussions over the fuel tanks and where the best location for them are. Do we continue putting them at every station? Do we centralize them at one location? And we can talk about that for a while if you'd like to, but we have had discussions.
But they're in this for right now, is it not?
Correct.
Did the fuel tanks that do they have the ability to fuel both types of fuel?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
But I assume our generator's gonna be diesel.
Yes.
So going back to what I just said, talking about the $20 million, 20-year lifespan, amortize that out over $1 million a year. We do it with engines, that's how we look at those. So we should look at this similar. Gonna pay $1 million a year for next 20 years, life expectancy. Just a different way to look at it.
Is that direction I'm hearing from the board is just go forward? And then we'll talk about how we're gonna pay for things, and when we get closer to the add-ons and those things, we can look at them and. Cause we need to get in front of the hearing examiner as soon as we can, cause that's gonna take a
Yeah,
while.
I think there's a lot of discovery left to do and a lot of
Yeah.
information yet to come in on the whole project, but I think staying the course is the right course of action right now and at least, better understand, at least for myself, that funding piece a little bit.
We'll have options going down the road, including add alternates. So saying, whoa, in the middle of this process is not gonna be productive for us. I think we need to keep going and stay the course, but go forward until further notice. And then if the board says no, or the chief advises no, whatever, we'll have that conversation.
Okay. Is that good?
Board, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, we don't need an executive session. We have roundtable, good order.
Go to the order before I forget. Is there a way that you could fill in for me on the triple FB meeting on May 12th?
Sure, just send me something, or chief can send me something, so I'll.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town, and you're the last representative and very.
Well, I'm the alternate.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Well, how about that? So I just wanna make sure that you're available for that, so I don't have to worry about it.
Okay. The chief will send me a reminder, I'm
Okay,
sure.
chief, thank you. It's probably good. And,
What day is it, on the 12th?
Yeah, it's on the 12th.
At 4 o'clock?
Yeah, 4 o'clock.
And we have been doing Zoom, so
Oh.
I'll get you the invite.
To be fair.
Ooh.
Do you do Zoom?
Maybe. Yes.
No, you do.
You're
Zoom,
wearing your
Zoom. Oh, that's a
mask.
car commercial, no. Oh, so as I move along, how's Chief Johnson? Can you give us an update?
So I did, text Chief
Commissioner
Moore.
Johnson,
Yeah, I texted Chief Moore and asked him, and I didn't get anything back from him, so I have not heard.
just so you know, he wasn't well, and I'm the current chair of it, so you may be running the meeting, and I just, so my best wishes to Commissioner
I
Johnson.
think he might be able to Zoom. He Zoomed their last board meeting
Uh-huh.
from the hospital.
He did?
And he's still on Facebook, so.
Oh, he is, okay,
So-
well, tell him I said hi.
I will.
Tell him I want the popcorn report that he keeps getting, that I haven't got. I got one up, I got the Comic-Con report, right?
I attended Bud Seiferd's memorial service out at ALNA last Saturday. It was very nice. I spoke on behalf of the district and the state, and Marlene, his wife, and Kate, his daughter, were both very pleased with the whole thing, and want to thank some people sent things to the family from the district, and they greatly appreciated that.
He was, commissioner when this station was commissioned. He's on the plaque at the front door.
Right.
Bud OT, I didn't know Bud was his
Odie?
nickname, it was OT was his,
Odie, right?
yeah, so.
There were some interesting stories.
I bet.
I'll tell you later.
Yeah, later.
Anything else, Chief?
Just for good of the order, we, with contracting with Rebound that the board allowed us to do a couple meetings ago, they do also cover our retirees, so we did reach out to all the retirees of the department and let them know that that service was available.
And the two of them called me and said, "What is this?" That's a good thing, won't cost you anything. Anything else? Okay, we need to authorize payment of current bills, pre-authorization transmittal, authorize monthly commissioner compensation.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting's adjourned, and just like that, we're gonna convene the local board for volunteer firefighters.
Ooh.
And we have one item, right?
Yeah.
Phil?
Phil's gonna take his retirement, good for him. And we just, help me out here, Secretary Taylor, we just need to take a vote to approve this?
Yes.
Okay. And so it's Secretary Taylor, the chief, myself, and who's the vice chair? You're the vice chair. Okay, the four of us. So we need a motion to do that.
I make a motion to approve, Phil Holmes' volunteer retirement.
Second?
Moved and seconded? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Did we get any questions on chat? Okay, perfect. Okay, that's done, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and we are finished.
Wait, did we have any viewers? Is the red light?